exciting the other day, isn't it? Well, yesterday I finished reading this fantastic novel, Battlefront, Twilight Company. I can never get that the right way around, which is why I just have to read it then. This is a great book. This reminded me a great deal of the old X-Wing series from back in the day when we had a bunch of nobodies basically who were doing their own thing. This is actually set between A New Hope and Empire Strikes Back. A chunk of it actually takes place on Hoth during the Battle of Hoth, starting the Empire Strikes Back. But while there were one or two moments that came almost uncomfortably close to the films, by and large it just sort of ignores that and, like I say, does its own thing. And it's fantastic for it. We've got a bunch of people who are like these, I don't want to say misfits, but they're very much like, your sort of general grunt troops. And we just follow them through a series of battles. It's a tie into a video game, which I'm not entirely familiar with, but a quick Google search has shown that the game takes place mainly sort of recreating the battles of the films. So it's good that this actually manages to tell its own story. But yeah, I was really impressed. It does. The one thing I would say that sort of puts it down a bit, and I've seen a couple of reviews online as well that also say the same thing, is it is very slow in the middle. And apart from that, it really does sort of keep you going quite a pace. There's an awful lot of tie-ins to the sort of EU of law of Yore with there's stuff like the Battle of Kartau, which is referring to Timothy Zahn's short story, well, six-part short story, Hero of Kartau, that was set in the prequels or something. I'm sure it was one of those Kinman Doriana or State Vestige was involved. And there's things like the Twilight Company hit Zagobar, I'm assuming that's how you pronounce it, which is the home world of one of the pod racers from episode 1. There's a Battle of Maijito referred to, which I think is not the Clone War Battle of Maijito, but even so, it's just really, really sort of like fascinating to see these new canon books so firmly entrenched already in old canon. I was going to say, the EU that is behind me, you can see that. Yeah, it was really good. I don't want to say I found myself like rooting for them or something, because I'm not getting into all of that, but they were interesting people. They were sort of different, not like your traditional hero types and you're following Luke Skywalker on yet another heroic adventure. The sort of like hero, if you could call him that, of the tale of this guy Sergeant Namir, who God's sake has a lot of flaws. And it's quite interesting, in fact, to see the rebellion and like stories about rebels, where we saw a rebel who didn't actually believe in the rebellion. He fought all his life, and this was just like the next fight happened to be he'd been recruited on his home world and went from there. It was really interesting to see that sort of dynamic, I suppose, among different types of rebels, rather than they're not all that sort of Princess Leia mold of believing in the cause and everything. Really, really good. Quite early on, the Twilight Company, I wouldn't say rescue, they sort of like, I suppose they kind of do rescue this Imperial governor, Avery Chalice, who sort of surrenders to them with the promise that she knows an awful lot about Imperial logistics. And as it happens, she does. It sounds really unexciting when I explain it like that, and at first I was like, this is going to be really sort of weird. But it turns out she knows exactly how the Imperial military machine works and what the rebellion would need to do to sort of hit them where it hurts. So they take her to Hoth, which is how they end up during the Battle of Hoth. Chalice is convinced that she's more important than she actually ends up being, and it's quite an interesting arc that she has to go from thinking she's really quite important to not at all. Vader shows up on Hoth and she's convinced that he's there for her, but actually he doesn't care, the sort of the imperial bad guy is a chap called Prelate Verge, as in grass, and he, I think, was a student of or was a protege of Ken Vidian, who was the main bad guy in A New Dawn. As it happens, Chalice also was brought out of obscurity or studied under or something, Ken Vidian as well. So there's interesting sort of ties into the new canon as well as, like I say, to older canon and the films as well. It's really quite sort of nicely done. We see a lot on the planet of Sullust, and I thought it was quite interesting at first because Nien Nunb, the co-pilot with Lando in Return of the Jedi, his name is bandied around like he's some sort of rebel myth, and we don't meet him until near the very end. And I just thought it was quite interesting. Again, different sorts of rebels and different rebel cells, rebel groups, and things. It was really quite interesting. The whole book is just really good. I'm just sort of rambling incoherently at this point. It's just really good. I'm a bit late because it's been out for about 3.5 years now, I think. Initially, I wasn't going to read it because, well, I bought it, but I wasn't sort of looking forward to reading it because it struck me that it might be a bit too sort of like military sci-fi, the sort of thing I don't tend to go for a lot. And to be fair, back in the day, the X-Wing series was a series that I didn't get around to for an awful long time either. But when I did, originally I really enjoyed them. Now I kind of get irritated by them. But I must say, the way you can tell a story about just nobodies, these sort of, like I say, they're sort of the ground grunts from the rebellion. They're not doing the glamorous jobs in the X-Wings and things. Yeah, I just thought it was really, really good. It's Bloodline is the baseline new canon novel for me. If a novel is as good as Bloodline, then I sort of will rank it quite high. I wouldn't put this on the same level. I'd say it's probably about the same level as The New Dawn. I enjoyed The New Dawn an awful lot more than I thought I would. Stuff like Tarkin, Catalyst were good books, but I wouldn't necessarily put them. Oh, that book was amazing. But this is definitely one to enjoy, and if you can just get over that sort of slump in the middle, it's really good. And apparently it was Alexander Freed's first novel as well. I was really impressed with that. First novel? Wow. I wish my first novel could turn out like that, if I ever get to write one. Anyway, this book is fantastic. If you haven't got it already, it's probably out in paperback now, I think it is in fact. Definitely go out, buy it, read it. You will not be disappointed. It was great.